Welcome to day 7 of Navratri. Navratri. It's so funny that keeps on eluding me. So yeah, I sit up here in my closet when I do these little chats. My altar is here. It's open to a bigger space in the house. So you might see laundry behind me and books stacked and clothes piled up. This is my little corner that's just mine. Yeah, the rest of the house is an altar as well. It's slowly becoming an altar again. My house used to be very much an altar, and then I have 3 kids, so my 2 older ones, as they got older, the house became an altar. Then life changed. Jules came along. So my house got deconstructed again. And now that she's getting a little bit older, the altar is coming back. Anyway, just a little bit about that. If you're like, where the heck is she? What is happening behind her? Life is in flux all the time. So today, day 6, is... And I haven't listened to it again. It's early, so it hasn't even come out yet. And I have something today, so I won't be able to listen to it till later. I wanted to do this before I leave the house today, and just to get everything organized earlier. So day 7, I don't know if I just said day 6, but day 7, 7th chakra, right? So now we're at the crown chakra. Kalaratri. I thought I had that right until I actually just tried to say it. That's the goddess. So again, it's a version, a variation of Durga, Lakshmi, or Saraswati. Maybe this one is. I'm not sure. I don't even want to speak about that because I'm not sure who it represents today. But this is the goddess of overcoming ignorance today. Whew. So my first inclination is, of course, leave it to Ma, leave it to Shakti, leave it to the goddess to draw us all the way up to the 7th chakra and then connect us to overcoming ignorance. That makes sense to me, right? Because sometimes on this journey we can get caught up in bypassing. I'm sure you've heard that term before, spiritual bypassing. And it's important to recognize through our self-analysis, which is part of yoga and Buddhism, where we need to shine light within ourselves, where we have to work through some of the more challenging things. And because it's a very holistic method, these wisdom practices, I find that when we practice with our intent on purity, then we're held in such a way that when we encounter ignorance or darkness, we can approach it in a way that is very just matter of fact, and we've learned to be kind to ourselves and compassionate, right? So it's all simultaneous awareness. And again, the more and more subtle we get, we gain access maybe a little bit, quote unquote, easier to the parts of us that may still be ignorant, okay? I find myself to be very curious when this comes up in me. Like, wow, I could You know, it's usually something that I think that I am aware of, and then I'm not. For instance, those of you that might be listening, some of you might have been at the retreat that we just had, the Festival of Joy at the studio. And when Lisa was, or actually Jen was giving her presentation, and she played a recording by Pema Chodron, or Pema. And at the end, Pema was speaking about basically a metta loving kindness practice. And she mentioned something about the anger of, I believe, the anger of a Jewish mother. And Lisa, who is a Jewish mother, was offended. And my inner reaction at first was, like, why? You know, we don't have to be so sensitive. And then it was just all right in the moment. I was like, you know, yeah, we are working to be more sensitive to how other people react. And so I might have even spoken sort of from an insensitive place to her at first. And then, like I said, in the moment I came around to think, oh, well, it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be sensitive all around, right? To be able to see that it was meant to be a lighthearted thing. You could input any mother, like me. I'm an Italian mother. I've come from a lot of, you know, I have an Italian mother, an Italian grandmother, an Italian great-great-grandmother on both sides. So one might say how we coddle our sons, right? And I personally would not take that personal. It's not too far from the truth. I try to stay aware of those socially or familially impressed things. Anyway, so that's my personal perspective. But then that was Lisa's, you know, she took offense to it. And so sensitivity to that, there's balance, I guess, in there. But in regards to overcoming ignorance, I was ignorant at first and thinking that she shouldn't be offended, right? That's just me overlaying my own opinion on top of that. So I was able to soften and extend compassion and take a deep breath and also just let it go. So this was just like a little, not even, 3, 4, 5 minute situation that just personally, I went through this range of like, ugh, really? To, oh, all right, well, let me honor that she feels harmed by that, and then share that with her, like that awareness of maybe in the future when I'm speaking, I can be more aware. I try to always be aware, to be sensitive to others. Obviously, it's not always going to work because sometimes, we're ignorant, right? Sometimes we're still overcoming our ignorance. So these are just tiny lessons. And I think when we begin on this wisdom journey, there's a lot of lessons of ignorance, right? And ignorance is just something we don't know yet. It could be, again, like the way that we're raised. We just think it's normal, right? Until we start to pull it apart and we think, oh, I have a choice. I can change my perspective, especially now that I'm incorporating these wisdom practices of love and kindness and compassion. And increasing my health and being aware of how I interact in the world, right? And societally, right? How things affect us, right? So at first it's a lot, it's big. And then as we continue to practice with real pure intent and self-analysis, then it gets a little bit more subtle, but there's always something. I mean, there's always something. And again, we can approach it with curiosity and kindness and gentleness within ourselves to say, whoa, that's interesting. All right, let me take a deep breath and let me see really how my heart leads me in regards to this, right? And with the mind of serving others and reducing the suffering in the world and having compassion, when we filter it through these lenses, the methodology of our practices, then the truth is revealed. So don't be afraid to explore the ignorance, our ignorant tendencies, right? Because they teach us more. They soften the heart. They're not to be feared. And then as we can relate this to Ma, we can ask Ma to help us take away this ignorance. And again, it's another path as we connect with ourselves as Divine Mother, as Shakti. We can ask, we can be courageous enough to ask, to highlight where we are ignorant, and then to lead us through with integrity and purity, right? And persistence and discernment, to realize that we have choice and to purify. Obviously, mind, body, speech, thoughts, words, action, same. Yeah, so we can rest in the gentle nature of Ma, but also the powerful, the fierce nature to say, you know what, I am brave enough, I am courageous enough to look at the places within me that are still ignorant. And here it says, the goddess reveals your opportunity for the greatest awakening possible, right? It's true. To realize your ultimate spiritual potential and your magnificent opportunity to self-realize. So again, reflection there, reflecting, bringing it to Ma to say, show me, so I can realize my greatest self. Show me. And soften around that, and then notice what's revealed to you. And soften to that, because sometimes we get a little defensive. Oh shit, I was ignorant. Oh, but you try to protect it because, you look bad. But instead soften and then own it. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I'm going to reflect on that, or further conversation, or, yeah. I leave you with that.